This is Storytellers and Storysellers live on tape. You're listening to Vineet Kanabar on the IVM Podcast Network. On today's episode, I am very excited to bring to you a conversation with someone whose work I have devoured over time. Especially one film that I have devoured and broken down and analyzed and imbibed in so many different ways. Not just myself, but almost all my close friends are huge fans of this film. And he's got a new film coming out, a new film that's come out on Netflix as well. Please give Storytellers welcome to Raj Singh Chaudhary.
Thank you so much for having me here, and I am looking forward to this conversation, and let's go.
Yeah, I love it. We'll talk about Raj's recent film Thar. We'll talk about his journey into films. He's been part of some phenomenal projects. I think when I was going through the research for this episode, I realized that some folks have a small but impactful filmography. Yeah. And that is someone like Raj. Let me start this episode by telling you a little bit about Thar. In Thar, that is set in the 1980s, an outsider played by Harshvardhan Kapoor, outsider named Siddharth, appears in a village called Munabo in remote Rajasthan. This village is situated in the Thar desert. It's somewhere at the Pakistan border. And it's a place जिसको देख के ऐसा लगता है कि यहाँ कुछ तो चल रहा है. कुछ होने वाला है या कुछ हुआ है. It's a mysterious sort of a place. There is wide open spaces. There are dead carcasses. There are मतलब मीलो उजाड़ बियाबान रेगिस्तान. सुनील शेट्टी की याद आ गई. और अजीब अजीब चीज़ें हो रही हैं. वहाँ पे अनिल कपूर is playing Surekha Singh, who's the local inspector. There is a cast of very interesting women who are up to something themselves also. And there is Jitendra Singh who comes in and plays his own character. So there's just...
Jitendra Joshi,
my bad.
Yeah.
I'll do that again. And there's Jitendra Joshi who comes in and plays his own little spin on this whole thing. And Thar is a cocktail of Rajasthani setting with Western values with Netflix level suspense. Raj, tell me where the story of Thar started in your head.
So, whenever we do films or I do films, whether as an actor or a director, I look for that core. What is that film saying? What do I want to say? So, basically, the film I acted in, Gulaal, I was the writer also. So there was something that I wanted to say with that film. Coming to Thar, but I had the thought in my head that agar somebody does such a heinous thing to you or your loved ones, aap kya kar sakte? What can you do? The law will take its course. Yeah. That's one. Jaake goli maar do, khatam kar do, revenge lena hai to. Or you make them go through as much hell and torture and pain that you or your loved one has gone through. Mm-hmm. So, for me, if somebody commits this sort of a crime, I mean, it's not, you can't do it in the real world.
Right.
But in my head, they should go through this. Right. They should go through hell. They should go through pain. They should before, they're sentenced to everything. That was the core thought of Thar. Now, taking that forward, where do I set the film? Mm-hmm. And how can I make it different from other revenge films? How will it stand out? I'm from Rajasthan. Right. I grew up in Darjeeling, but I have a huge connection with Rajasthan. But throughout my life, the films that I've seen of Rajasthan, they showed a certain Rajasthan.
Right.
Mostly palaces, sand dunes, then destination weddings. This part of Rajasthan I've been seeing through since childhood.
Right.
And I, for some reason, I'm a huge fan of, since childhood, of the Western genre, whether it was the films, the Sergio Leone films, right. Clint Eastwood, whether it was the novels written by Louis L'Amour, or it was those graphic novels, comic books that I think in my last life I must have been a cowboy or something. So
you can pull off a cowboy, man.
I know, I need to learn how to ride a horse. But anyways, So, that Western genre always intrigued me. And
Right.
then, bachpan se, I used to go to Rajasthan. There's a child's imagination. Ki ye pahad se yahan pe, there'll be a horse coming and there'll be a cowboy looking down. And, those things were, as a child, I never knew I would get into films.
Right.
So, when I thought of this germ of an idea and then I developed it into a script, I thought I can adapt the Western genre into this part of Rajasthan
Mhm.
and make this film.
Right.
That is how it came about. So right from my first line that I had written, I knew it had to be this genre. And a Rajasthan that nobody has seen. And I shot every single shot in Rajasthan.
Right.
There is not that somebody can say ki ye kahan cheat kiya.
Right.
So that Rajasthan is what I've seen. And somewhere the faces, the sunburnt faces, the dirty teeth. So you see Westerns, you in Mexico or Texas, you see that.
Right.
Yeah. And it's very similar to the visual palette of Rajasthan, that part of Rajasthan.
Absolutely love it. I think what you said about showcasing the kind of Rajasthan that we don't see in a lot of films, right?
Yeah.
The Mare Hevda Mein Nache More Rajasthan that we've seen so many times
yeah.
played over, which is almost cosmetic, right? वो आप राजस्थान से निकाल के किसी भी हवेली में डाल दो वो चलेगा.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. Whereas there is a grittiness, there is a something that's lent from the setting into the story
Yeah.
that really comes through in Thar. I want to spend a second talking about the visuals in Thar. Right. Of course, it's a gripping story, but I think Shreya Dev Dubey
Shreya
with
Dev Dubey,
the cinematography and the way you've done your sets and framing. I think every time I've seen Rajasthan in a film or in a show, it's always bright and colourful and poppy, and there is, a decorated camel or a Pushkar fair in the background. And here is a Rajasthan which is out of Mad Max, right? That in my head, that's where it went.
Shreya had actually mentioned Mad Max when we were doing the recce.
Right.
Yeah.
And that just felt ominous,
Yeah.
I think, right? Talk us through how that came about, right? And there's a wonderful article in the Architectural Digest that breaks down some of the setting, some of the sets that you've built. But if I'm getting this right, none of this was actually present. It was built from your imagination. There was maybe just a wall, but an entire room was built. There was maybe just an open field, and that iconic shot of the buffalo carcass in front was placed there. Talk us through some of the process of building this.
So, I wrote this script a while back.
Right.
And Phantom was producing it.
Right.
Anurag and Vikas and Vikram. From that moment, whenever I visited, I never knew when the film would get made, who's going to be cast in it. But whenever I went to Rajasthan, I just got into my Jeep and drove around.
Right.
Wherever. And I went deeper into the interiors. I mean, there's Rajasthan, you travel by the highways and you travel even semi-highways and you see that. But there's one you go on foot.
Right.
Yeah, so I did that. And in my head, I was very clear of what sort of visuals that I wanted. But it was just about finding those locations. In fact, where you're talking about the buffalo, that location is 3 kilometers from my ancestral village. I've seen that since I was a child.
Right.
So, and that became the center point for all my locations.
Right.
Like, so one direction takes you to the fort, one direction takes you to the village, one direction takes you to the dhaba cum bus stop.
Right.
So that village was very crucial. Now, I wanted that whole Western vibe of a guy walks into it and you have the, people just sitting, smoking, looking. And we looked and looked and looked and looked I must have seen some 800 villages.
Oh, wow.
And I told the line producer also, no. Finally, he sent me the picture of this village. It's actually one structure, 800 years old, dilapidated, but it contains everything. It's like a mini village within the structure. And it was on top of a plateau, unapproachable.
Right.
He took me there. I said, I love it. We do this here. He said, I can't shoot here.
Oh, wow.
Because we can't approach the wild animals around. Equipment will not come. The trucks will not come. I said, make it happen. So they actually built the road.
Wow.
So, I mean, the production, hats off to them. So build the road to take us there. The dhaba, I had seen this Kishangarh dumping ground where they dump marble. It's been over years they're dumping those marble dust. It's a wide, white expanse.
Right.
In fact, a lot of things have been shot, the music videos, wedding videos. But I visualized the dhaba in the middle of that, like just a white expanse and just a dhaba. So not the typical bus stop or dhaba, but something that Vasi Khan, a production designer, we discussed, we made it, and that's how. I tried also not to make it too unfamiliar to the territory.
Right.
I think we've achieved that, that whole black wooden structure in the middle of this white thing. So like that, the fort I'd seen, that's another 800-year-old dilapidated structure. I climbed it. One day I was just driving by, I saw it and I climbed it alone. So that is how I slowly put the locations together. And for all the drive-by shots, for everything, we just went deeper. I used to stop the cars and just start walking with the line producer, only he and me.
Wow.
And then we found something we'd call the rest of the crew. So that's how. And I was just looking for, my template was westerns. My template was locations like Mexico. My template was that. So just kept looking for them. Rajasthan, you look for them, you find them.
Man, when you say this, and of course, having seen the film, and I'd urge all of you to go see the film, right? It's a visual treat. It's got a deep message in there as well. But when I hear you talk about it, in my head, in my relatively smaller exposure to films, it sounds like Sergio Leone meets Werner Herzog. Somewhere there, right?
Somewhere there, yeah.
With the whole sort of aesthetic of the real grittiness in you really. I mean, I'm visualizing you driving into a Jeep, visiting 800 villages. Like, it's a mad effort.
Yeah,
man.
it is, yeah.
Help me understand the process of then taking it to Phantom, getting Anil Kapoor and his entire company involved. Was that like an automatic choice in your head as the director? Did you think, hey, this is what I'm looking for? How did that father-son duo thing happen for you?
So when I wrote the script, I sent it to Anurag Kashyap. So he said, "Chhod ke chale ja." So, and he used to live at Warsaw at that point. I left it at his place and I drove. By the time I got to Lokhandwala, he called me. I'd read 20 pages.
Right.
He said, "I'm doing this.
Right.
I want to produce this." And Phantom is going to. So that's how it came about. And then when we were looking to cast the lead for it, I saw the trailer of Mirzia that had come out.
Right.
And Harsh was in it.
Right.
And I told Vikram, because Vikram had started shooting Bhavesh Joshi with Harsh at that point in time. So I told someone like him would be very good for it. So Vikram spoke to Harsh. Harsh read the script. He really liked it. He came on board. And then I waited. Phantom was wanting to make the film. Waited. Didn't happen. Then Phantom, they shut down office. Harsh and me were left. Ki pata nahi kya karen, kaise karen. And at that point in time, so Harsh and me tried to put together the film, get finance on board. And then I told Harsh, what about Anil sir for the cop?
Right.
And he said, I'll talk to dad. So Anil sir read the script, and one day I received a call. I didn't know who it was calling. He says, Raj, this is Anil Kapoor here. And I was like taken aback. And anyways, he called me. I went and met him. He says, I really like the script. But I don't know you as a director. You've never directed anything. So he said, shoot 3 scenes with Harsh.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's
And
like getting an assignment from him.
yeah, it's like, and he teases me now, like, I took your audition as a director.
Beautiful.
So we shot 3 scenes properly, like a film cameras, everything. Edited it, did the DI, sound design, background score, and showed it to him in a theater. And it's very interesting. I was sitting behind, he was sitting aage, and then he saw those 3 scenes. There was around 10 minutes or so. And then he just sat down for 3-4 minutes. And he was looking at it. And then I said, you're not saying anything. And he just turned around and he said, fantastic.
Oh, love it.
And then that is how there was a producer who was on board at that point in time, but he couldn't raise the funds. Then Anil sir took over, and then he said, I'll produce it. And then Netflix came on board, and then just so that was the process, actually. So kudos to Harsh for just wanting to make it happen.
Love it. I mean, I can't help but say that it's a missed opportunity for him to say Jhakas. But I love it, man. What a great story that is. Yeah. That is awesome. And shout out to Mr. Anil Kapoor. He is fantastic in the whole thing. Right?
No, he's absolutely.
Right. Just a brilliant actor. I think he's having such a great sort of, I don't know if it's a second innings or a third innings, because his career is
40
as
years.
Old as I am.
40 years.
But I mean, the stuff he's done, stuff he's done, which is more family stuff. Even this one, he's just blossoming into a whole different league now.
No, but the great thing about him is that he can adapt to any sensibility as an actor, and also as a person, a film person who's reading a script.
Right.
He knows the sensibility of a script, and as an actor, he can adapt. It's if you like, Jug Jug Jio and Thar came out at the
Of
same
course,
time,
yeah.
around the same time.
Yeah.
So you see him in Jug Jug Jio, and in Thar, it was just read the script. We had a discussion. He knew what sur to catch. Yeah, he knows a bit sur to catch as an actor, and it's just that. And there's this other thing about him, is that he drives you. His work ethics, his passion is that you cannot be like resting on.
Yeah.
You have to be on your toes.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know your stuff, he's going to ask you 100 questions.
Right.
And you need to give him the answers.
I'm sure
So-
that comes with like 40 years of
Yeah.
doing
Yeah,
top-notch films,
and it's amazing because insan thak jata hai. 40 years of doing something day in and day out. It's not that he's ever been out of work.
Right.
He was continuously working for 40 years and having the same passion, the same excitement, the same energy and pushing others to be like that. Outstanding. Whether it's his health or fitness, whether as an actor, whether as a producer. Even if he was not shooting, he would come on the set, be there. You would see if the energy is dipping. He would be there to lift it. Assure you that don't worry. Sometimes, some days are there where it's tough and you don't get things because of certain technical issues, something. Is there tension mat le, to shoot kar. Hum 4 din aur karenge, tension mat le. So that sort of thing.
That's such a great sort of confidence builder for someone who's also, first film that you directed.
Second
first feature.
film, second feature.
Sure.
First one is a smaller one.
Right.
But this was the second one that I directed.
Love it. It's such a confidence booster, right? When you have
absolutely.
someone like a legend like him giving
Yeah,
you...
to direct him. How do you direct him as an actor?
Right.
What do you say to him?
Sir, notes dene wala main aapko. Switching from that AK to the other AK, right? What's it like when Anurag Kashyap steps into your script or your film? And this is something that's, I think, formative to how your career has taken shape in the Hindi film industry as well, right? You wrote what eventually became Gulaal as a sort of different story, and then he picked it up and ran with it as a screenplay and built it into what it then eventually became, which is like a cult classic, right? Like I think nobody who's been a student between in that time has not seen Gulaal and been inspired by it in some way or
I
form,
get
right?
invited to a lot of college and university
Absolutely.
film appreciation courses and
Right.
stuff like that. Just because of Gulaal till now.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that will be the case for the next whatever number.
I hope so. Yeah.
It's a fantastic film. And I must congratulate you again. I might be the last person to congratulate you about Gulaal, but I must do it. Tell me what happened when you took that story to the other AK, like we said. What happens when he steps in?
So, I'm a software engineer.
Right.
I landed in Bombay as a software engineer and wanting to be in films as an actor. Didn't know anybody, had no clue. And this was at a time there was no social media. This was at a time there were no studios. This was independent producers. Had no clue what to do. I'd just been out of college and seen ragging, experienced ragging, was staying in the hostel. And Satya had just come out.
Right.
And when I saw Satya, I said, if somebody's made such a stark and real film on the underworld, nobody has done that with college ragging and college politics and stuff like that. And so I wrote the first, so to say, draft of Gulaal. Kuch pata nahi tha. I didn't know any technique. I didn't know any structures of writing, screenwriting, but I just wrote it from the heart. And I wrote a story that I had in mind. And somehow I associated Satya with Anurag, not Ramu, for some reason. And one of my friends was acting in a film called Panch, which he was directing. So I asked him to introduce me to Anurag, and that's how I met Anurag. He read what I had written. He said, this is good, but where is it? Where is this? Have you set it? I said, I don't know, just any college or university. He said, okay, we need to find some milieu and some this thing. So he said, where are you from? I said, Rajasthan. He said, let's go to Rajasthan. So we went to Rajasthan, him and me, and we just was there in Jaipur, went around, went to the university. Somehow during that time where we connected with some royals, ex-royals.
Right.
And something clicked in his head. And when he came back, he wrote Gulaal, what it is now, and where the whole KK Menon character came and Juki Bana, and the whole underlying thing that, we have to get back Rajasthan for the Rajputs, things that stemmed from there. And then it took us a lot to make that film because there was no one willing to put in money. And obviously he said, "Tune likha hai, to obviously you want to play the." I said, "Yeah, matlab that's." And there were a lot of offers to him to make it with other actors, established actors, but he stood his ground.
Wonderful.
And I also ran around for getting finance. He did. Eventually, Mr. Jamu Sugan came on board. He finished 80% of the film. Then something happened. And then Z stepped in. And then we finished. So the journey it was a 7-year journey.
Right.
And then Piyush Bhai is another story.
Right.
Piyush Mishra.
How's working with him?
Oh, he's a genius. He is absolutely a genius. And he came and Anurag said, "This is the film and you just compose and write the songs." And he just sat with his harmonium and just went ahead with it.
What a legendary sound!
Yeah, absolutely. I think his lyrics and his music and the songs made what Gulaal is today. I think a huge factor is that.
Absolutely. I mean, it's indistinguishable from the experience of the film.
Yeah.
It is often what you take away from the film. Often the first thing you remember is the kind of music, the setting, the intensity with which the soundtrack is. What a fantastic film.
Yeah. And I wonder if Gulaal had released in today's time, it would have been, I mean, it did very well. Like you said, it's become a cult film. But today, if it had released, it would have been something else.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, like I said, and again, in my limited experience with films, I don't think there's been anything such as Gulaal since.
Yeah.
Right?
And, using your platform, I'd like to
please
tell the producers of Gulaal, please put it out on OTT. It's not on any OTT.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, please, you can put it out on OTT and it will do very well. Please do that.
100% deserves to be out on OTT. Formative film for so many of my friends, people I know, every engineer. I'm an engineer. That whole sentiment of having a Ransa in your life and having a Dukey Bana and having college politics and seeing it play out in what doesn't feel like यार ये किसी और के साथ हो रहा है, it feels like this can happen, this happens, this has happened, and that realism is fundamentally important and most definitely needs to be.
And what I wanted to add was, while this process of Gulaal was happening, I got a part which was my film school, was Black Friday.
Right, of course.
I assisted Anurag in that. I played a character in that, and that happened in between Gulaal.
Right.
And that's another legendary film, Black Friday.
That's what I said, that your filmography is power packed.
Yeah, but it went wrong somewhere.
Yeah?
I'll tell you why. Because when I did Gulaal, I did Black Friday, and I did a film called Antardwand.
Of course.
Then I, in my head as an actor saying, I want to do these type of films. मुझे ऐसी फिल्में करनी है.
Antardwand was National Award for Best Film with Social Impact.
Social causes.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I did those type of films at that point in time. And unfortunately, they didn't release.
Right.
I got a lot of offers to be part of bigger films. Sure. But तब मैं था कि no, I want to do यही फिल्में करनी है, इस type की फिल्में करनी है. And that time there was not so much of a acceptance to those sort of films.
Sure. Let me take a quick break.
Yeah,
and come back and talk a little bit more about this. Because I feel like films that have a meaning, films that point to something in society, definitely have a time and place in the way that Indian films are consumed. And I'd love to know more about your experience with that. Go nowhere. Fascinating conversation. We'll be back on Storytellers and Storysellers after these messages.
Hey, it's been a special week for the IVM Podcast Network as we turn 8 this year. Listeners, thank you for being with us on this wonderful journey. Presenting to you Club Cyrus Says, the premium tier offerings for our podcast. Club members will get exclusive Cock and Bull episodes every Monday, extended and unfiltered versions of the guest episodes, access to the Club Cyrus Says Discord server, and audio offerings such as ad-free episodes and early access to guest episodes. Also, members get to decide the topics of live episodes and get their name on the producer's slate at the end credits. On the Wire Talks, Siddharth talks to former BBC journalist Satish Jacob about the latest income tax raid conducted at their BBC office in Delhi. On The Habit Coach, Ashton helps you get a perfect answer to the question, who do we work for? On Storytellers and Storysellers, Vineet hosts actors Madhyama and Chayan from Netflix's hit series Class. They spoke about how they prepared for their roles and working with Ashim Ahluwalia. And on Vartalab, Akash and Naveen talk to Anshu Patni, CEO Mythoverse Studio and podcaster. They speak about parenting, home culture, and Anshu and Akash's days working together. Once again, don't forget to visit our merch store on ivmpodcast.com. We have some exciting stuff for you over there. Follow us on social media via IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. If you like our shows, spread the word. Tell your friends and don't forget to rate and review us wherever you're listening to us. You'll also find all our shows on youtube.com/IVM Podcasts. And finally, we would like to thank our sponsors this week, Yono SBI, Cash Free Payments, and HDFC Mutual Fund. Thank you for making this possible.
And we're back. We're talking to Raj Singh Chaudhary about his time in the movies. Before we went into the break, we talked about Thar, about how Raj got into movies from being a software engineer and being a fan of Anurag Kashyap in Satya, which is a very interesting twist, right? Everyone talks about Satya and Ram Gopal Verma. Anurag Kashyap was one of the main writers in the film.
Yeah.
And we were talking about how his oeuvre has been built around films that have a social rooting, if not a social cause, but at least a social rooting in there. Raj, help me understand this. And this is something that I feel very strongly about over time, right? There's a guy called David Foster Wallace. He's was an American novelist, also an essayist, also a big entertainment sort of consumer, right? He said, if you don't make films that have a message, then what you're really doing is pointing something out to a dog, right? If you point something out to a dog, the dog isn't looking to what you're pointing to. The dog is just looking at your finger, right? If you start making movies that have nothing, that are pointing to nothing, then you're just, your audience is just a dog looking at a finger. Now, help me understand this. When you try and make these movies today, or maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago, how is it received in distributor circles? How is it received in producer circles? Is there aversion to stepping into something like this? Is it harder to raise capital for films like this? What's the life cycle of making something with a strong message?
So what I've learned is that, yes, what you said is it's very tough. It's very tough to make a film like this. But what I've learned is you can still do that by adapting to a certain form of cinema, which Thar is a prime example of, and casting big.
Right.
So if you can get a big cast for it, do what you have to do, but also just make it, I don't want to use the word commercial, but make it
commercially viable, maybe.
Commercially viable, but do what you have to do. I mean, I sent out a message with Thar. I sent out a message with my earlier film called Shaadistaan, which was a smaller film, and a lot of friends, great technicians and actors came together, and we made the film, shot it in 15 days. But that was a smaller film, but did well. It got good reviews. It's on Hotstar. Thar, obviously, because of the presence of Mr. Anil Kapoor and then Netflix, and that is what I've learned, that you say what you want to say, but say it in a larger way.
Right.
And make that, and find your own space of how you want to tell a story. But what I was trying to do earlier is very tough.
Right.
I mean, everybody's faced it. I mean, Anurag has, Black Friday, se lekar. He tried to make some other films before that. It was very difficult. Until he became, after Dave D, suddenly everything opened up for him.
Right.
Yeah.
That's for sure. I think that's a very interesting way to look at it, right? Stay true to what you're trying to do, make it maybe visually interesting or thematically interesting, and try and figure out a way to cast big, right? And of course, the story you just told us about how Harsh Kapoor got his dad come in, it's a fortuitous sort of turn of events, but if you would have known that beforehand, would you have still gone out and done it the same way?
If I had known what? Sorry.
If you would have known this secret that you're talking about right now, which is cast big so that your story can surface, would you would you have done it the same way if Harsh
If I
was
were able to.
Yeah.
If I were able to. But fortunately, like you said, Thar, from where I had started off from and what I thought of the cast and where it finally turned out and who came on board, that I feel the universe just conspired in my favor.
Right.
And it happened because, so I've learned, like I said, that this is the way to go. Even for my next, whatever I'm doing, my next projects, just have that balance,
Right.
Yeah, because today, and fortunately today, a lot of actors, the bigger actors, are willing to do this, and then, but you also have to choose the right actors who are very good actors also,
Sure.
and big.
Sure.
You can't just take somebody who's big and who cannot pull off that role.
Right.
So
Right.
things like that. It's like a, you have to like balance things out.
Of course.
Because if I make a film today with, which nobody's going to watch, then the whole effort gets wasted.
Right. Let me ask you this. And this is interesting to me because a few episodes ago we were talking about how can Bollywood, I hate that term Bollywood,
Yeah.
but how can the Hindi film industry come back and be relevant in a big way again, right? And we were talking about how the audience is either interested in seeing large fantasy type things done really well. Like you can't get away with
Yeah.
just a middling sort of story or character, an underdeveloped characters or whatever. Or you need stories that are from the small towns, or stories that are, from the constellation of characters that inhabit your worlds around you. But you may feel that they're
Connected, yes.
relatable.
Connected.
They're connected, right?
Yeah.
The andhaduns of the world, for example.
Andhadhun.
You're someone who's been doing this latter for a very long time already,
Yeah.
right? I feel very proud to be sitting here and talking to you
No, thank
about
you.
the fact that you have stayed true to who you are and
Yeah.
stayed true to where you come from, and it reflects in the kind of stories you tell, right? Even when you're doing when you're writing a no smoking, it feels like a story that could happen to any of us.
Exactly. Yeah.
What do you feel about this modern turn or this new turn that we're seeing? कि यार small town की story बताते हैं, right? Is it a fad, or as someone who's been a practitioner of this way of making films for a long time, do you think that it's something, it's like an idea whose time has come? Which way are you leaning?
See, I think, in my opinion, I think we in India have a lot of stories to tell. So there's a genre of the pure commercial film, the song and dance film, and that's been going on for years. And that's great, because that is entertainment and people love to go and watch that, and you have the bigger stars and the scale is great. That is one genre. I'm not talking about that. That should stay where it is.
Sure.
But we have a lot of stories to tell. And it's just like, to give you a small example, humor. Every milieu, every word in India, like Sujit Sarkar got that with Piku.
Right.
Yeah, that the Bengali,
Right.
or if you see Dam Laga Ke Haisha, or if you see even Vicky Dona,
Sure.
these are the stories that are very true and real to the milieu that they're set in. And when Jolly LLB, for example, I think the first time we saw a court and a judge as real as it could be.
Right.
And it worked. It worked because that was not being shown to the audience, and that is new to the audience. And they're connecting. हाँ, हम कोर्ट गए थे तो ऐसा ही था, या हम मेरे पिताजी ऐसे हैं, या my family is like this, or
Right.
that shop down the road is like that.
Right.
So they started connecting, and you're telling a story through that. You're telling their story, and that will always connect. That will always connect. If a film has a soul, if a story has a soul, and if people relate to it, I have this theory that whoever sees a shoot happening in their area will definitely go and see the film,
Absolutely.
because they want to see how
कैसा दिखाया?
kaisa dikhaya, so that, I think, if we tell stories that is rooted in a country and tell it in the right way, and again coming back to a cast that this thing, that's a short way to and do it at budgets that are not spend money that you cannot. I think, see, just to take on from that, another theory that I have, I'll just give you theories. I don't know
Sure.
they can ever be implemented,
No,
or if
no.
I can implement it, but it's just like, as a film person, you think, say a very big actor, very big star. Yeah, he does his films. He does a big commercial film. He does everything. He spends, and they make millions out of it. Right? Now, if he takes 20 or 25 days of his life, and makes a film, and takes a stake in it, he's anyways going to make 50-60 crores out of it. Because that film, चले भी नहीं तो 50-60 crores, 70 crores तो बनी जाती है. And if you make the film in around 20 crores or 15 to 20 crores, and that you do it for this sake, you will see things changing even in a better and bigger way. They have to lend themselves to like in the West, George Clooney would do it, a Brad Pitt would do it, a Leonardo DiCaprio would do it.
Absolutely, yeah.
And they should lend themselves to this sort of cinema. Give, you see a good script, maybe a director who's 1 or 2, 3 films old, lend yourself to that script. Lend yourself to that director. Make that film. You will still make the amount of money. But you are putting out a film that raises the level of cinema in our country.
Right.
And then like you talk about the RRRs and you talk about what Sanjay Leela Bhansali makes. And I mean, I think it's a process. We need the big stars to just take that step.
Love it. This is an appeal to all big stars. Do it. 25 days of your year is all you need to save Indian cinema. Do it.
Not save Indian cinema.
It's okay.
Indian cinema is great. It's just to,
elevate it.
Elevate it. Yeah, you come out with some great stories. And I see so many people with great stories wanting to tell those stories. अच्छी कहानियाँ हैं. And मुझे तो लगता है कि if we do our stories and do it in a way that resonates all across the world. The Chinese did it at one point. Yeah. Right. Koreans are doing it.
Yeah.
Some European cinema is happening. We have great history. We have things that, stories to tell that the people
Such characters we have in our histories, man.
Yeah.
My God, like all we know of our history is from our history textbooks.
Yeah.
But if you actually go a little bit deeper into any region, right? You don't even have to take it to like Ponniyin Selvan level where it's like massive in mythology. Go into like कहीं मतलब बीकानेर में कहीं किसी घराने में कहीं किसी हवेली में वहाँ की जी स्टोरीज हैं वो भी काफी जबरदस्त
बहुत कहानियाँ. I mean just a war, independence war में ही 100 फिल्में बन जाएंगी.
और बिल्कुल
इतनी कहानियाँ हैं.
बिल्कुल.
And उससे पहले जाओ बहुत सारी, and there's so many things. Like I keep looking for these stories. I've taken some rights of some people.
Right.
अब कब बनेगी पता नहीं, but I'm just trying to make those films.
Right.
So I think if we tell stories very rooted to us, have a bigger actor lend himself or herself to the film and take it out there into the world, we will change a lot of things.
Love it. I hope that happens. Let me ask you this. So you're someone who's a software engineer, like you said. And I'm guessing you didn't go to film school apart from Black Friday.
Yeah.
Right. How did you learn?
Have you seen a kid in a garage who's been working as a mechanic since he was a child?
Yeah.
And by the time he's grown up, he knows much more than any mechanical engineer out of any place.
Yeah.
It's that. I'm not saying I'm that sort of a genius, but what I'm saying is that when you learn on the ground, I've been like, I am an assistant director. I've written. I don't have done everything that is to be done on a film set. So much so, and during Gulaal, it was like a lot of production hassles were also on my head because I'm getting ready for an intense scene, and the LP comes and tells me कि sir वो थोड़ा सा ना problem हो गया है, वो आ नहीं रहे हैं वो लोग. The juniors have not landed or कुछ. I said, I'm getting into the scene. Like my mind said, like, give me 5 minutes.
Right.
So things like that, Sure. So it's just, and then as an actor also, whenever I acted in films, it's not that I've given my shot, gone back to my van and chilled. I have been on set.
Right.
And as an actor, when you're in the center of everything that is happening, you learn a lot.
Right.
I hung out with a lot of DOPs. As an assistant, you learn a lot of, even after Gulaal and after Antardwan and after this, I went on Gangs of Wasipur just to be on the set.
Right.
So for me, it was just that I wanted to learn and imbibe everything. And a lot of credit I would give. What I've learned is, suddenly when I look back, I was thinking the other day, Anurag ka har jagah haath hai. Even Thar mein bhi haath hai. So a lot of what I've learned has come from his teaching, so to speak.
Sure.
So it's on ground. Everything is on ground, and I think you learn. That's the best school.
Love it.
That's the best school, and you make mistakes. Obviously, you make mistakes. I know there are a lot of loopholes in my first film. I know there are a lot of mistakes in my second film.
Mhm.
You learn from that. But it's just that you keep at it.
No, of course. I mean, you only make mistakes if you do things.
Not to say that you shouldn't go to schools.
Right.
They are also a great learning space.
Of course.
I don't know if it was an opportunity or it never came about.
Sure.
Because I spent 5 years of my life, rugdoing myself in the software industry, and that's also tough, You're an engineer, you know that.
Yeah, I mean...
I worked for a year also,
Yeah.
developed software.
Yeah.
So...
Oh, no, I mean, for people who are built for that, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Right? And for people who are not built for that, it's a prison. Let's call it that,
Yeah.
right? Like, and for people like us who are fortunate enough to work in this industry where you can be part of a bigger thing, which is a story that so many people believe in, if that's what gets you going.
Yeah.
I mean, I can think of a parallel, the guy who develops Windows 95, for example.
Yeah.
Right now, he sees millions of people using Windows 95. I'm sure there's fulfillment to be had. But if that's not yours, that's not yours.
This is the only place where you can create your own world.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask you one more thing about learning the craft a little bit, right? And like you said, Anurag Kashyap was a great school. He's had a role to play. But have there been maybe books, maybe courses, maybe films that you've just seen, read, absorbed to learn the craft a little bit?
Yeah, a lot of it.
Can
I'm
you
an
tell us-
avid
tell us
reader. Just anything. See, as a director, I'm just talking as a director, not
Sure.
as an actor and a writer. It's what you see of life and what you understand human beings and what you understand of their behavior, and if your EQ is high,
Right.
if you're able to grasp what happens and if you see the world,
Right.
that is one aspect of things.
Sure.
Second is you read a lot, you imbibe a lot. You read about screenwriting, you read about directing, you read about cinematography, you understand. There's no, in my life, because it's been so long, there's no pinpointing of this or this or this. It's
Right.
just that universe of films that was there in front of me, which I watched, I read about. I used to read screenplays.
Mm-hmm.
There was a technique which I always did was that I used to first read the screenplay, then watch the film, then go to the screenplay, every scene, watch that scene,
Right.
things like that. And being on set, and being an actor and being on all sides of the table helped me as a director, because and a lot of directing is about how you are, with the actors.
Mm-hmm.
कि सुर ऊपर है नीचे है सही है इस सीन में क्या ग्राफ जा रहा है. So all that is, it just, if you ask me to write it down and explain, I can't.
It's hard to do.
Yeah, it's just about imbibing.
Right.
It's just about life. Life is what you learn, in life.
On the job.
On the job. Yeah. Yeah. So this is life. You learn on the job.
Love
So
Which role do you like playing best? The actor, director, writer?
director now, because like I said, you get to create your world.
Right.
Because when you see that film on screen, आप सोचते यार ये मैंने ये दुनिया बनाई है.
Right.
And you get to tell your story visually to a lot of people, and people watch it. And it's fantastic. And you get to say, see, हमारे पास कोई platform नहीं. I don't have a platform to where I can go and raise awareness, or I don't have a platform where I can fight for something. I don't have a platform where I can, this is my only platform.
Right.
And that's why I said, I'd like to say something with this through cinema.
Right.
And want people to watch it. So
Love it. And so many people are getting on the train. Let me ask you this about what kind of director are you? Are you someone who takes a lot of takes, wants to get that perfect shot, or are you someone who gets it and then knows that it's still within your control to elevate it with other elements?
see, it's different. Like for Thar, for example, it's a
Mhm.
very visual film also.
Right.
So sometimes you needed to take a lot of takes just for the visual thing to work out. Sometimes technical issues, sometimes a light, sometimes just suddenly doing a take and a cloud passes over.
Right.
So things like that. But if an actor and actor gets it and is there, and Thar had a lot of great actors, and they just got it. And quickly just wrap it up, because sometimes you don't get that much of luxury in this thing too also. So we had certain things that we had to finish in a day. Maybe 1 or 2 days we could overlap and push to the next day, but beyond that we didn't have the window for that. So that with Anurag, this is the thing I've learned he moves like he's very fast.
Right.
Yeah. So
Love it.
And also leave the actors, you have to, as an actor, I understand that if you give them room for improvisation, they come up with some magic.
Right. Of course. Because they're not just a instrument, right? There is also
No, they're
individual-
intelligent, they're sensible,
Exactly.
they understand cinema, they understand
Exactly.
scripts.
Exactly. Love it. Who was the actor who surprised you the most in Thar? Like you saw them perform and you're like, man, this is just something else.
See, Anil sir definitely. I'm just going.
Sure, of course.
Fantastic.
Right.
Satish Kaushik, Satish sir.
Legends.
Legends.
Absolutely.
Jitendra Joshi is an outstanding actor.
Absolutely.
Harsh, Harsh is someone who is very, very sensible. He understands scripts. He understands. So he was also very good. But I was surprised actually by Mukti Mohan.
I was just going to say.
Because we tested her,
Yeah.
and she was good. But when I saw her with the whole thing there and just getting into it, and when I saw that on the monitor, I was like, wow, this girl is...
Scene stealer, right?
Yeah.
Full on.
I feel that Fatima was also very good.
Of course.
Yeah, Fatima was very good. But we all have seen their work, Mukti was somebody I was taken aback with.
Yeah.
Yeah, because... And she was fantastic.
I remember when I was at TVF and Mukti was part of a show we'd done called TVF Inmates. I'm pretty sure nobody in this room has seen TVF Inmates. I'm pretty sure nobody who's listening to this has seen TVF Inmates. Okay, go watch it. It's very interesting, experimental sort of a show. And Mukti was in that show playing a bisexual girl. And this is 2017 we're talking, right?
Wow.
So not, Vogue Central 2022. This is still a few years before. Scene stealer. Every scene in that show as well, right? And to me, that's what it brought back when I saw the scenes that Mukti's in. I was like, dude, this girl is a phenomenal actress.
Yeah.
Right?
Presence, a fantastic dancer.
Absolutely.
And she's, if she gets a film, which, is like I'm saying a big commercial film, she will just blow your mind away. She's that good.
Producers, if you're listening.
Yeah.
Mukti Mohan.
I plugged you in over here.
Shout out to Mukti Mohan, man. My last question.
Yeah.
Really. Actually, second last question, because I will ask you about what's coming up next before I let you go. If there was a film that you were to remake, right? Because I know that there are a lot of films that are successful and then they get made again for some reason, right? A successful film ko fir se kyun na rupta hai? In my opinion, films that have failed or films that got written off should be the ones that get, another shot at being amazing, right? Because किसी ने तो मेहनत की थी. Someone wrote this story and someone thought it was worth making. Then someone thought it was worth acting in. And someone thought it was worth putting a lot of money in. For some reason or another, it didn't work out, right? In your experience in the films that you've either been part of or seen, what's that one film that you'd like to redo or remake?
So I'll take it in a different way.
Sure.
A very, something that I really want to do it was Prithviraj Chauhan.
Right.
And
Akshay Kumar.
No, yeah, the film that came out.
Right.
But before that film came out, I always, it's like my dream film to make.
Right.
Prithviraj Chauhan. Now that because it's come out, I can say, okay, I still want to do a Prithviraj Chauhan film, and I know his story in and out. I'm and I can see what I want to and do with that film.
Sure.
So not exactly a remake, but the same thing that I really want to do. But you're talking about Hindi cinema?
No, any. That's a great answer, actually.
Yeah. So so that is, but remake of something that is there and been really. I actually received 2 scripts to direct of 2 remakes. I won't name the films because
Sure.
but and they were iconic films.
Right.
And I got the script, the remake script, and they were pathetic. So you know,
I don't get it. Why do people want to play on hard mode, right? Why remake something that was good?
Yeah. It.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Just remake something that you think was good but didn't hit the mark.
बहुत कहानियाँ बोलने को अभी बहुत कहानियाँ. There are so many stories to tell. There's so many. We can do our own Godfather. We can do our own Narcos. We can do our own Shawshank Redemption. We can do our own. There's so many stories that are there. But yeah, I mean, my dream is to do one war, elephants and horses and that Rajput. The stories of valor and.
I think there's Panipat always.
Panipat is, and that's what we discussed, history.
Yeah.
There's so many stories to tell. But Rana Sanga, one hand.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Blind when one. I mean, what stories to tell?
Absolutely.
Yeah, all across the country. There was a king called, he was known as the Alexander of the East, Lalit Aditya.
Right.
Nobody's done something on him. I mean, we know Alexander, we know, and this thing, nobody's done a film on Lalit Aditya.
Wow.
So things like that.
Love it. And I love the clarity with which you know what you want to do, right? Which is this kind of stuff and that kind of scale. Which brings me to my last question.
Yeah.
Your next is also set in Rajasthan.
One of
your
next
is also set in Rajasthan. What can you tell us about it?
So it is set in Rajasthan. Again, what I'll tell you is that it is again a Rajasthan that nobody's seen.
Mm-hmm.
This much I can tell you, that it's about the royals.
Right.
But not Gulaal, not Thar. Sure. There's a Rajasthan again that nobody's seen. So it's in that space. I'm trying to do something with that would, when it probably comes out, will stand out for just the world that we've set in, the visuals, the things like that. Other than that, there are 2 films with Mr. Anil Kapoor's company.
Right.
And there's a couple of series that's in the offing. So these are things I'm working on at the moment. But this script I'm writing with somebody, the Royals. That was an idea that was playing in my mind for a while. Right. And it's again, I hope, I mean, I'm with the lessons I've learned with Thar, and I hope I'm a better director after that. So I'm looking forward to that, because that will again create something, I feel.
And you're looking at a theatrical for this one?
Yeah, there's a theatrical, and we've just finished the first draft, and it started off somewhere, but what we've reached is quite amazing.
Love it.
Yeah, so
awesome. A lot of the films that you've done have a very clear cast angle.
Yeah.
Right. Now, this subject matter often is either not portrayed.
Yeah.
Right. जैसे RRR में जो कास्ट का एंगल है वो कहीं एक्सप्लिसिटली कॉल आउट ही नहीं हुआ है. राइट. वो दिखता है, जिसको दिख रहा है वो देख सकता है, बट अदरवाइज इट्स नॉट कॉल्ड आउट. राइट. थार में जो भूरा वाला कास्ट एंगल है वो
very subtly
it's there.
Yeah.
What are the difficulties that a director or writer faces when you're trying to portray this subject matter? Or is it something that you consider when you're putting it together, or is it something that you want to keep?
To be very honest, started considering it. Pehle nahi tha. That whole thing of, what can we say and what we cannot say, what is to hold back. It's not a good space for a writer or a creator to be in. But unfortunately, we've started thinking on those lines. The idea is, what is cinema at the end of the day? I mean, you are in some sort of way reflecting life.
Sure.
But you're putting it out in a form which is, but I don't know, honestly, to speak. I mean, whether shall I, take a sidetrack to it, not be there. There were certain things, even in Thar, we cut out afterwards. I mean, when on the script stage itself, so also I think there's some people are doing it for sensationalism.
Right.
I mean, I'm talking about filmmakers.
Sure.
Some people have agendas.
Right.
Why are you wanting to put that in, or what are you saying with that? What is the intention for that? To be very honest, my intention is to show the public at large, भाई ये आईना है, ये आप देखो, और इससे I'll give you it's a very funny anecdote.
Sure.
For my last film. So just quickly, that last film was about, what happens, people from Rajasthan, they are settled in Calcutta, Mumbai, and Marwadis and this thing. And what happens is that they educate their daughters in very good schools. So the moment they're 18, they're taken to Rajasthan and gotten engaged or married off to, I wouldn't say wrong people, but people you don't gel with, you don't vibe with, you don't. And that happens at the age of 18, And this is a story about that. This is a story about a certain family from Mumbai taking their daughter back to Rajasthan, and they go they happen to travel because of some reasons in a small minivan with a rock band.
Right.
To Rajasthan. And during the course of the journey, it's how two, worlds meet and two ideologies meet, and how by the end of it, they realize that hum beti ke saath galat kar rahe hain.
Right.
That was in a crux, that was the story. But there was a scene, the last scene, I didn't want to put out that one of the fathers finally turned around and he realizes. So I used a sort of symbolism and a metaphor. So हमारे बहुत सारे मतलब इंडिया में घरों में रात को जो the wives वो हस्बैंड का कच्चा बनियान और तौलिया ले जाके बाथरूम में रख देते हैं क्योंकि सुबह जल्दी नहाते हैं. ये बहुत जगह होता है एंड हमने देखा है बहुत जगह. सो आई यूज दैट आफ्टर ऑल दिस हैज हैपेंड द वाइफ इज गोइंग टू डू दैट अगेन. सो द हस्बैंड सेड डोंट डू इट. And she says, why? What happened? He says, I've just realized that you've been doing this and I'm ashamed I can't take care of my own kacha and banyan. That is the metaphor I used. And so that is my way of saying that he's realized that, and I had gone for dinner to somebody's house and the wife says, thank you very much. आपकी फिल्म देखने के बाद ये कच्चा बनियान खुद संभाल रहे हैं. So, I'm saying, so that little bit of impact it had. सो इट्स लाइक आईना आपने दिखा दिया. मैं कुछ आपको नहीं बोल रहा हूँ कि आप ये करो या नहीं करो. मैंने आपको आईना दिखा दिया. एंड नाउ इट इज़ अप टू यू. इफ़ यू फील दैट हम गलत कर रहे हैं टू चेंज, आपके ऊपर है नहीं चेंज. तो इफ़ थ्रू माई फिल्म्स में इफ आई कैन मेक अ लिटिल बिट ऑफ चेंज इन दैट सॉर्ट टू फ्यू पीपल, आई थिंक समवेयर द जॉब इज डन.
Love it. I think that's at its simplest, that's the power of storytelling. That's what it is
and
supposed to
do. And it does
do.
influence,
Absolutely.
Because when I travel, and I visit, interiors, I stay in villages. Films do have an impact, positively and negatively.
For sure.
So the idea is to make the impact positively. And coming back to your question, I think we should say these things, but with the right intent.
Love it. And I'm glad that we can talk about this, and I'm hoping that more people tune into this very important conversation about caste, especially because we're telling these stories that are important now, right? We're telling these stories that are coming from the heartland, that are coming from smaller towns.
Sorry, I'm just like caste is like, what happened with the Nirbhaya case,
right?
I mean, that shook the whole country. The whole conscience was shaken, But मैं आपको पूछूं, आपके मन में what was it that should happen to these people who did that?
Right.
We all have answers.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and that is what I put out in Thar.
Yeah. No, and that sort of public enactment of revenge, it becomes very important, right?
Yeah.
Like when it's revealed at the end, I think that sort of, like I said, public enactment, public conscious, the clearing of the public's conscience, delivering to the public what their emotional desires are. I think the subject matter when it comes to women, subject matter when it comes to crimes against women, definitely a very potent and important conversation that we're having. I'm hoping that at some point.
Yeah, and I also believe that you have to be stark about it.
Absolutely.
Like, it's like, when we saw the picture of that Pulitzer winning prize picture of that kid in Africa, like looking for morsels of food in the sand and a vulture waiting for the kid to die.
Yeah.
It shook the world. That's what we, then the whole world stood up. Or the Syrian kid on the beach.
Yeah.
So visual impact is huge. It can shake.
That little kid at the Bhopal gas tragedy, I don't know if you
I know that. Or the Gujarat riots. There was it shook the world, and that visual impact is there.
Yeah.
And with the films, we can do that. And that's why I feel we should be allowed to show things in a very stark way. If it repulses, it is meant to repulse you.
Yeah.
It is meant to, dig deep into your conscience.
Yeah.
I mean, that I hope answers, what...
No, it does.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I threw in this question at the end. That's it. It's a fantastic conversation.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed myself.
Thank you so much for being on the show. I hope you enjoyed this chat. If you haven't yet, please go and watch Thar. It's on Netflix. Wonderful film, visually stunning, deep message in there, stunning performances. Pretty sure it's been a while since you saw something like this. Like, I think if you like films like Sonchirya, if you like Lal Kaptan, if you've seen Lal Kaptan.
I haven't seen Lal
Yeah,
Kaptan.
so in the very Western sense of an Indian film, but with a strong heart in there. That's it on this episode of Storytellers and Storysellers. This is Vineet Kanabar saying goodbye.
Thank you.